Welcome back into the Showtime College Football Week 11 Raw Reactions, doing it all in one go today. Gonna make it quick because we're both tired after a long Saturday of college football. But what a Saturday it was. Another slate of upsets. Once again, welcomed us in to the world that is college football. The SEC kind of turned upside down. We'll get into all of that. And Chase, I'll start by asking the same question as always. What was your favorite game of Week 11?
Honestly, BYU-Utah was a really good game. It was just close. The tension was high the whole time. Same with Georgia Tech Miami. Another really good game right there. I don't know. It was just another great week of college football.
Yeah. Every slate had a great game.
Yeah, good games all around.
It's true. But let's start off with the morning slate. Let's react to some stuff here. Obviously, we don't have a playoff poll or college football playoff poll to react to. We do have the AP to kind of give us a guide of what people are thinking. Different from the playoff, but kind of gives us a gauge. But we'll start off with with our reactions to the first slate of games. Miami versus Georgia Tech, upset alert. Now, this game, I apologize, guys. I didn't even put this on Upset Watch. I thought Georgia Tech wouldn't give Miami a hassle. I don't know why I thought that, because what team hasn't given Miami a hassle? Like Duke, Cal, La Tech. Yeah. Almost every team they've played has given them why? I'm trying to think. I don't know how me and Sned we were like, yeah, Georgia Tech's good, but I don't see him. I see Miami covering, and for some reason, I kind of just threw them in the dirt a little bit, Georgia Tech, and they did it. Solid performance all the way through. They just kind of put a beat down. It wasn't like they had a crazy breakout quarter. They got, repeating scores. They kind of just beat them.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chase, how do you feel about Miami at this point? They were number 4. Everyone in the nation kind of thought they were a little overrated, but, they were undefeated.
Yeah.
Looking
at the box score here, Miami had more yards than Georgia Tech did.
Impressive.
They had 348 passing yards still, and Georgia Tech had 99. It's just, Miami had one turnover end of the game that kind of cost them. They just couldn't really finish drives. I think I saw 1 for 4 on fourth downs. That's really the big story, I think, in this game, is they had a couple chances, I think, inside the Georgia Tech 30, and they went for it and didn't get it when they could have just kicked a field goal.
Right.
But yeah, I think Miami, they finally ran out of their magic. The Miami Magic finally came to an end. Cam Ward couldn't do it. And I don't know. I feel Cristobal, when he was at Oregon, we had a lot of close games like Miami did. We won most of them. But yeah, it's it finally happened. Cristobal kind of just got out-coached. He went for fourth downs when he shouldn't have, probably. So,
yeah. I don't know what to say, Miami. Now, well, the question is, really what happens with the Miami game is it's not like Miami's not out of the playoff talks. They're 9-1. They're doing just fine. They don't play anybody else all season, respectfully. But all of a sudden, all of this attention, now we've already put a lot of attention on this team, but now it's even more so. All of a sudden, one team stands alone atop the ACC standings, and that is the Southern Methodist Mustangs.
Pony Express.
The Pony Express is atop the ACC.
I'm the conductor of the Pony Express at this point. I've been on this.
You're the conductor, man. You're at the front of the train.
I'm the front of the train.
You're the front of the train. A lot of people are getting on the back. The back's getting heavy. But the front of the train is, there's a few people, but not too many. A lot of people hopped off the train after that week 2 loss. And so there's not many people left at the front, You're up there.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. You were about to hop off. You had a foot dangling.
After Nevada BYU, I was like, I don't know. I feel like they'll figure it out. They were a bit of an identity crisis. They were kind of like Oregon, trying to figure out what they want to do on offense, and they finally figured out with the quarterback situation. And since then, they've kind of just scored at will.
They kind of scored 68 games.
Speaking of that, I want to go back. Miami, they finally got shut down on defense, we've talked about, and it showed what happened. Georgia Tech, they ran all over them. They had 300 rushing yards. So, I don't know. Yeah. Miami, big question mark on Miami for me.
Well, and what I said last week, I said a team that relies on offense is really good until they're not.
Yeah.
It always a team that's good on defense generally is more. I mean, we're talking about occasionally. I would say on average, though, a team that is a defensive centric team is going to be much more consistent. A team that is a offense centric team is going to be more hit or miss, or at least have a game like this one. And you see, Chase pointed it out. I mean, they still had almost 400 yards of passing from Cam Ward. He still did his job to a degree. And he went for 25 for 40. So, I mean, not the greatest clip, but 3 touchdowns. And it looks like it came down to conversions, 4th down conversions. And I mean, that's huge. That's 4 turnovers, 4 drives. We know that they were probably at least past the 50. I didn't watch every play of this game. Chase, you probably watched more of it than I did, but it comes down to that. And that's why offense fails sometimes. It comes down to very small things.
Yeah.
So Miami scores 23 points. I'm sure that's the fewest they've scored all season. They've scored 50 plus every week, it seems like. And so it's crazy that Georgia Tech scored 28 points and beat Miami with only 2 points.
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy.
Like, I don't feel, when you look at the stats, and you don't feel that bad about Miami's offense, like, well, they still went for 400 yards. 400 yards usually does a lot more than 23 points.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've not lost all hope on Miami, but I did want to bring up, I mean, we already talked about SMU, but I think it's a big question now. Who do you rank higher? I have an opinion about this. I'm going to let you go first, Chase, but the AP poll has Miami right ahead of SMU. We'll see what the playoff committee says, but who do you rank higher? Because they're about in the same spot right now.
Yeah, I think college football poll will be very similar to the AP. I think Georgia and Miami will both be around that 9 to 12 range.
And I don't know, maybe SMU will jump them, man. I don't know. It's tough to say.
Yeah, I'm thinking, well, I have a prediction and I have a take. My take is that SMU, I think, is one above Miami. I think you rank them right next to each other. I think SMU has, honestly, a better win over Pitt. I mean, they both struggled against Duke. They're pretty similar. They don't have the strongest strength of schedule, but it comes down to the loss. I mean, the loss for Miami is Georgia Tech. Loss for SMU is BYU. And so it's like, well, I mean, it's almost like the law of deduction. I hate going off losses. You guys know that. But that's what it comes down to is, okay, SMU lost 3 points to BYU. Georgia Tech lost 4 points to Georgia Tech. Or sorry, Miami lost 4 points to Georgia Tech. So
yeah,
it's that's what it comes down to me. I think it's an easy decision for the committee. Like, I don't understand if SMU is ranked below Miami, I'll be like, what am I missing here?
Yeah,
like, what am I missing? Like, what in their resume? Now, the dominant win at Florida is still kind of what Miami goes to, but that's not that great of a win.
No, and it was also week 1?
It's week 1.
Yeah,
I know it's hard to win in there, but they did dominate. But ever since then, they haven't really done anything. And I think SMU, checks all the boxes that Miami does, and then one more.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So I think, I think they'll be right next to each other.
And I test SMU's way better and way more dominant over the same level of teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it should be a clear cut Miami and SMU. I think they'd be right next to each other. I still think Miami is a top 14 team. I won't even say where, but I definitely think that they should be. I'll be upset. Well, you always hear it on the live on Tuesday. I will be upset if Miami is over SMU.
No, I'm the exact same way.
Completely
but
agree.
Let's move on to another games here. We had a great, and the morning slate was all right. We had some good games. But I will say I did have I woke up a little later, and in Utah the games start at they start at 10 a.m. So I mean, if I'm not waking up early, it's a little tough. But I wanted to move on to Georgia Ole Miss. Now this is more of an evening game. We'll bounce around here. But I feel like Georgia Ole Miss was kind of I feel like it's actually not getting as much attention as I thought it would get.
Yeah.
Y'all, Georgia just lost.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know. I think it's because people feel like a lot of people thought it would happen. I don't know.
It's true.
But besides Dart's pick at the very beginning, which led to a Georgia touchdown, after that, man, Georgia really, really couldn't do anything on offense. They absolutely just bodied Carson Beck. Like, they got to him every play. It felt like that offensive line just did not care about Beck at all. Like
Yeah.
20 for 31, 186 yards, 0 touchdowns, and interception. Another interception there. Sacked. It looks like he had 8 carries for negative 20 yards. I don't know. Just like Georgia just really couldn't do anything on offense.
Yeah.
Like ETN, 24 yards, Frazier, 47 yards running. Like they really, and the one touchdown he had was just because they were pretty much on the Ole Miss 10,
Right.
To where, I don't know, Georgia just did not look great. I mean, Ole Miss only had 2 touchdowns to where,
Yeah.
but still, they still got down the field pretty much every drive to get a field goal to where.
Yeah. And I to Georgia's credit, I do think this was a bad matchup for Georgia. Like, I think Georgia is still, I mean, they need to fall. They need to fall to below 10. I would say they have 2 losses.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But at the same time, this matchup was just horrendous for Georgia. Coming into this game, we talked about how Georgia needed to establish the run game, and they were going to run the ball because they have not been able to pass the ball, and they almost can't trust Carson Beck to not commit turnovers at this point after these last few games. And Ole Miss has the top 3 rushing defense in the country. And we knew one of those was going to show up, either Georgia's rushing or Ole Miss's rushing defense, and we saw what happened. Ole Miss's passing defense is not good. They're 82nd in pass yards per game allowed. And so, I mean, it was like, all right, I think they almost dared Georgia to throw the ball, and it didn't work out. Georgia, you talked about, they had that one drive that was given to them. This was kind of like the Texas game. Now, Georgia won that game, and they looked very very good. I'm not taking away from Georgia, but their only score was when what was it, on the 30 when they got handed the ball?
I think it was even closer than that. I think it was like on the 12. Like,
oh, wow.
It was right there.
Yeah.
Let me look real quick.
I wonder how many offensive yards Georgia had as a
right
whole.
Here. Jackson Dart pass intercepted, returned for 13 yards to the Ole Miss 21.
Oh, 21. Okay. We're right in the middle. But that's just crazy. I mean, and what's insane is Georgia still had 245 yards of offense, which isn't horrible, but when you go 6 for 14 on third downs, 1 for 3 on fourth downs, that's kind of what does it for the offense. You can't convert on these third and fourth downs.
Yeah.
Same thing as Miami.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It was just Georgia just could not really get anything going on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, they did have one drive kind of to make it a 1-score game, and then Beck just threw. I mean, it was tipped, but it was still just a bad throw. Like his guy was covered to where just another bonehead pick that he threw. So
yeah, it's true. And it's kind of shocking to see a team go for 400 yards on Georgia. When was the last time we saw a team go for 400 yards on Georgia?
Well, when's the last time we're going to see Georgia outside the top 10? Probably. Like,
yeah,
kind of crazy.
It's crazy. So now Georgia, I mean, this is a conference game. Georgia has 2 conference losses along with Ole Miss, and so these standings are getting a little spicy. That was what the SEC. Well, I don't know if they did. I don't know what the SEC commissioner wants, or it depends on what team you're at. But like that's what the SEC just didn't want. Is now it's you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, you count Missouri and LSU, 7, 8 teams with 2 losses in conference. Now, some of these teams have more wins on top of that. But I'll read you guys the list.
The top 3 are just 1 loss. But
and the top 3 are 1 loss. Sorry, I said 2 losses or less is what I meant to say.
Yeah, no, but
yeah,
like let's say Georgia beats Tennessee this next week, all right, and then Texas A&M or Texas loses to someone, but then whoever loses beats the other, to where both of them are 2 losses in conference.
Which it's like super probable that's going to happen.
Yeah, to where we're going to have like 6 or 7 teams that have 2 losses in conference for the SEC. I'm sure some of you guys saw that same tweet I did or on Instagram, to where it's like SEC, man, it's just, I don't know if it's just not as strong this year or if it's just everyone's strong or there's just parity like crazy.
Yeah.
Where it's just a very weird year for the SEC. Like,
or are we finally seeing
every week people just get flipped, It's just the weirdest thing.
Or are we seeing finally the effects more every year of the transfer portal and of the idea of the expanded playoff? I think that legitimately is the reason. And I'm here for it. Right now we're seeing all these pros. I mean, this is awesome. The last 2 years have had a lot of parity. last year had it. It was like, this is the most parity we've seen in like 5 years in college football. And this year I would argue is more. It's interesting. I feel like the transfer portal enables players that if they're second string, they want to play. All right, I'm going to play in Georgia. I'm going to go Ole Miss and start. Yeah. And it's just like, it's so easy to switch that it's insane. I love it, actually. To a degree, I do love it.
Well, here's something interesting to look at. Missouri, 3-2 in conference, points for 91, points against 142.
Oh, gosh. Missouri's humiliating the SEC right now.
They have a 51-point negative differential in conference play, but they're still 3-2. That is just insane to me.
Yeah, they've won narrow, very close games. Beat OU in overtime this week.
We had them ranked.
Beat Vandy in overtime.
We had them ranked this week, mainly just because I had no idea who wants to put from 26 to 30. I was kind of just like, I guess Missouri, they're good. They're not great, but I don't know who wants to put here. So
it's always hard in college football. Are they actually good, or is the whole conference just kind of all right? Yeah. I don't know. And you look at a team it's weird. I'll read you as the list right now, because I bet you don't even know who's at the top of the SEC right now. 2 teams are number 1. That is Tennessee and Texas A&M. Both are 5-1 in conference. Tennessee's loss being to Arkansas, A&M's loss being South Carolina. Both of those being upset losses. Like, it's not even like they lost to Georgia or to they lost games they shouldn't have lost on the road, which is awesome. Love that. Texas is 4-1. They're in 3rd place. And right now it looks like it's going to be pretty much no matter what, unless more upsets happen. But Texas and Texas A&M are probably one of those two is going to be in the championship here. We could have predicted that, but now it's like statistically that's probably going to happen. We're going to have either one of those. Whoever wins that game at Kyle Field, last game of the season, will probably be in, and then it's going to be mayhem for whoever. There's going to be a 4 or 5-way tie between guys that are all 6-2 in conference.
Yeah,
that's what it's looking like, and it's going to be between. Let's say Texas A&M wins that game. Let's say Texas A&M wins that game, and let's see how many more weeks are left for the SEC. Most SEC teams, most have only 3 games, and one of those games being a crappy game, right?
Yeah.
So most teams only have 2 more games left in conference,
and
so we're getting to where we can start to see. Now the SEC is messy, but we can start to see what's panning out, and it looks like a favorite to win. It's going to be a 8-way tie for second or something. It's going to be absurd.
Crazy. So crazy.
Now there's going to be tiebreakers that make it easy, but there's going to be some that are hard. There's going to be Ole Miss, Bama who didn't play.
Yeah.
So,
there's going to be a lot of unhappy fans because there's going to be a 4 or 5-way tie, my guess. So,
yeah. What I am scared for, I've had it in the back of my mind all season, is I am scared the SEC is going to gain confidence with the Big Ten and say, you know what, we're done with this. We want all these teams in the playoff. And there's enough power there. I think about it at night all the time, man. If it goes to 2 super conferences.
Look at the last AP poll. 4 of the top 5 are Big Ten.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Speaking of the AP poll, Penn State should not be ranked 4. If you think Penn State should be ranked 4, please send me an email or a handwritten letter on all the reasons you think they should be above anybody that's below them in the top 10. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
All due respect, I don't have much respect for Penn State right now. So, love the team. You guys know I like Penn State to a degree, fandom-wise. But, anyways, let's move on. I think we're done talking about Ole Miss. Ole Miss is 4-2 in conference, by the way. I wanted to get to this. Where do you think they're going to be ranked in this poll, Chase?
This is tough because they're 16 right now, and Georgia will probably fall out of the top 10. But it's kind of
are they going to try and hop Ole Miss over Georgia?
Saying. It seems that based on this last one, they put Kansas State 1 above Colorado and A&M 1 above LSU, to where for me it sounds like they're favoring head-to-head matches a lot. I don't know if Ole Miss will make that big of a jump just because of current rankings. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. It feels like we talked about it with the Clemson Louisville pick. It seems like if they're within 2 or 3 spots, they'll gravitate towards each other and flip if it needs to be flipped.
Let's see, because LSU lost, so they can jump them for sure.
Yeah.
SMU didn't play. A&M didn't play. Boise State struggled against a Nevada team. A lot of people in our
comments, not very good.
were wondering why Boise State dropped, why some teams jumped them, I'm sorry, but Boise State struggled against a few Mountain West teams. I mean, they end up pulling it out at the end, but I don't know. There's just some games I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like first half of the Boise State Hawaii game, me and Chase watched
It was
that.
weird.
Boise State just didn't look great. I don't know. Ole Miss could jump up quite a bit. I mean, Bama killed LSU, so Bama will probably jump up a lot too. I don't know. It's tough to say.
And I hate to say it, man. I'm loving Boise this year, even with my predisposed attachments to a friendly rivalry in this state with Boise State. I really like Boise. Like I love the uniforms. I love everything about Boise. I think it's fun to watch. They're a fun team to have in the conversation. It's fun to be like, well, they're going to get an at-large bid, bro. It doesn't even matter. It's like fun to talk about. They played well against Oregon, but here's my thing: you're going against Nevada, with all due respect, who is 3-8, 0-5 in the Mountain West, and you're giving Ashton Jeanty 34 carries, 209 yards, 3 touchdowns. I love Ashton Jeanty. He's my Heisman candidate still.
That's insane.
But we're talking about the team here. Maddox Madsen, American Fork High School alum, fellow high school alum from, good old American Fork, Utah. But 9 for 20, 119 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Not horrible, but at the same time, Boise State is somewhat proving they can't rely on the pass game. And you watch Boise State go into the playoff, and they're going to play a team like Ohio State or Ole Miss or BYU or Indiana, a Power 5 defense. And I don't know if they're going to be able to rely on Ashton Jeanty against a, like talent-wise, like 4-star, 5-star D lineman, if you can rely on Ashton Jeanty as much. All due respect to Ashton Jeanty, but that it seems like a huge glaring problem that I don't know if they can rush him 35 times against Georgia.
Yeah, no,
it scares me. It scares me for him. I think Boise State fans would agree. It's scary.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that one.
So Boise State, I'm a little worried. I don't know if they'll drop in the playoff rankings. We'll see. Anyways,
one thing I wanted to talk about was Iowa State and Pitt. 17-18, Iowa State losing to Kansas, who finally played like the Kansas we thought they'd play like this last week.
Yeah.
And then Pitt lost to Virginia. So I hope both those teams are completely gone out of the ranking. Iowa State went from undefeated to unranked in 2 weeks, which is quite crazy.
Pitt will probably do the same.
Yeah. Pitt will also do the same.
Is Pitt also unranked in the AP? I assume they're unranked in the AP.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. With all due respect to Pitt, I thought they should have been ranked last week, or at least like 25. Like, okay, maybe. Lost to Virginia. We've talked about Virginia, like not bad, but still, that's not a good loss at home too.
Yeah.
And so Pittsburgh and Iowa State, just you put them perfectly. They did the same exact thing. They were both 7-0 2 weeks ago, and now they're both 7-2.
Yep.
So that's just weird. Now, neither of these teams had the greatest resumes, but they both lost, and Iowa State lost somewhat convincingly. Now, they did kind of make a comeback like they have in every game so far this year, but they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And next week, Kansas goes to Provo. That seems like somewhat of a big upset watch for me as an analyst, as a fan. Kansas State has the talent to be a very good team. We know that. I mean, they have a talented roster. It's been play calling, locker. There's been a lot of problems, and all of a sudden now I don't know, can they even get to the bowl? I think they're a 3-6.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're fighting for bowl eligibility. So that's going to be an upset watch this week playing at BYU. But Kansas is interesting. Iowa State, I do think should be. We have them at I threw them in my ballot.
I didn't throw them in mine.
I got them. I mean, it's
I was surprised you put them in yours, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I was like, 7-2 Iowa State. Imagine if they had won 2 in a row.
I think my last two, 29 and 30, because we have an Excel sheet where we add everything up.
Mm-hmm.
29 and 30, I just put, I don't know. I just put IDK. I just didn't even know. It was 1 a.m. last night, and I was like, I have no idea who to put.
Well, because usually to find that last 2 teams, you kind of gotta go search. You're like, all right, let's see.
The thing
let's
is,
look at the non-ranked teams. Who won?
Even searching, it's do I put 7-2 Western Kentucky in here? It's who do I put in here?
Yeah.
So
I tossed in Iowa State. I gave them a bone, but I don't know. Throw
Yeah.
a bone. Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. Man, poor Iowa State, man. That's a tough couple of weeks.
Yeah.
On a losing streak is it's hard to be on, especially when it was kind of like they were one game away from breaking the school record of first ever 10-0 team or 9-0 team, and they didn't do it. Now they're 7-2.
Mm-hmm.
Rough. My heart goes out to y'all, Iowa State fans.
Now,
My heart goes out to you.
Speaking of the Big 12, the championship has kind of narrowed down now. Colorado has a pretty favorable end of the season schedule for them. They have Utah, Kansas, and then Oklahoma State, I believe, to where they could definitely win out. And then BYU. I don't know, BYU. I wanted to ask you about this, Chase.
We're talking about BYU now?
Yeah,
Right.
You were at the game.
Yes.
Utah, whether you think it was a hold, whether you not, BYU won. It's the end of the game. That's what happened. There was a bad call against BYU first half that led to a Utah touchdown, and I wanted Utah to win. To where I'm just saying, I'm being honest. Goes both ways.
You need to be willing to say that. You need to be the one to say these things.
Yes, yeah, of course. It goes both ways. To where I went to bed kind of upset, but then I woke up and I remembered I don't really like either team, so I don't care. So, anyways, moving on. Like you said, Kansas this week. Kansas looked pretty good. They looked pretty good. It is at Provo, night game, 8:15. It's just going to be even louder than before because you guys are top 10 now, to where
It's going to be rocking.
Kansas, they have a lot on their plate. But the one I'm worried about, we'll talk about it next week, is at Arizona State, who I think
y'all might be there.
Who I think should be ranked.
Yeah, they should be.
Where I don't know,
7-2.
At that point, it would only be one loss for BYU in the conference, so it'll still probably be Colorado BYU, unless Colorado chokes, and then it's really up to Kansas State if they beat Iowa State. Kansas State gets back in.
Yeah. Also, Arizona State plays Kansas State next week. So Arizona State's either unranked and 7-3, or they're number 19 and BYU's it's like a big noon kickoff, and maybe College Game Day hits a Big 12.
Shoot, Arizona State could sneak into the Big 12 championship at this point.
Yeah.
Depending on.
So they're not out of it.
Yeah. Who would have thought, man? What a year for the Big 12. The Big 12 is just. I don't even know what to say about the Big 12.
The only conference that's not chaos. Well, actually, I would just SEC and Big 12 are chaos. ACC and Big 10 are a little more straightforward. It's a couple games that are going to decide it. But Big 12 and SEC have 8 teams that could win it. That could go to the state. And Big 10 and ACC have started to narrow down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting. It's interesting, guys. But yeah, let's talk about BYU Utah. Let's dive into it. Let's get into it. I was at the game. Hostile environment, fantastic environment from the Ute fans. I did sit on the north side. Any of you Ute fans know that's a cult up there. I love it. That is that was fantastic. It was so dang loud in there because that stadium is relatively compact. Like it's very, and I was on the 6th row, so I heard everything. I was in a sea of red. I did wear blue. You guys know I do have a fandom on the side here. What a game. That was an excruciating game for any BYU fan. The entire game being down, not playing up to par. Everything was weird except for the fact that BYU had no turnovers. That was the X factor, and that's what it's been in the Holy War for a long time. But I do want to say this. The Holy War once again proves that it is a top 5 rivalry in college football, not only because of the passion it goes outside of sports, but because of every single freaking game is so dang close down to the wire. The ESPN announcers were saying at the end of the game, now this is going to be the greatest Holy War that they've ever seen. Little did they know. Announcers, you got to study up on the Holy War, man. That game is light work compared to every Holy War game. I am telling you, the Holy War is literally a shocking game every time. 2012, Utah blocking a field goal. 2006, back to Harline. 2009, overtime. There's so many fantastic games. Coming down to a 2-point conversion by Taysom Hill that's failed. It's just every time it's the last play. Every game. An anomaly is winning out by kneeling the ball. That's an anomaly in the Holy War. That's my little speech right there. That game needs more coverage. And I think it will be it is the biggest rivalry in the Big 12, which will help it a lot. But I will say this: BYU didn't do as well as they thought they would do, and they still won the game. BYU did not perform very well. That's one of the hardest environments to play in the Big 12, and BYU found a way to win. That's really all I got to say. There were definitely some insane calls in that game. Of course, I am somewhat biased, but even in my unbiased opinion, it was a holding. Now, I will say there was a lot of that the whole game that wasn't called. I mean, that happens a lot. So I am surprised they called it on that play. So I will say, I'll give you that, you fans. It was a holding, but I was surprised they called it on that play. Yeah. The stadium was so loud, no one had any idea what even happened. Everyone was looking around. No one had the game was over because everyone thought the game was over, and all of a sudden you see the ref pointing, and no one heard anything. It was so loud, deafening in that stadium. Love the Holy War. I got many, many comments. Probably I counted about 35 comments. Either F BYU, F me, F blue. Love it. I just laugh. I love it. It's part of college football. You don't get that. You don't get that in any other sport. You just don't get that. So I love it. Anyways, guys, BYU remains 9-0, and I think they will be still disrespected by the playoff committee. Have a great feeling about that. Don't got much to say on that. We'll talk about that on the live. But that's what I got to say about the BYU game. Don't have much to say. Utah did find their quarterback. Brandon Rose is the future, and he performed excellent. And I feel like scoring no points in the second half wasn't really his doing.
Yeah, I was gonna give my spiel about the game after.
Yeah, you go. I'll give you a shot here.
I will give this. BYU found a way to win. Oregon's had that.
Defense stepped up.
Oregon's had that in 2 games this year, to where I can't really talk. But good teams find a way to win games. Utah, I don't know what was going on during that game. Second half was weird. I feel they kind of changed their play calling, went away from what was working.
Yeah. They also started playing zone on defense, by the way. They switched from man to zone, and then that's when BYU started going outfield.
Yeah, Utah completely switched what they were doing, and they didn't let Rose do what he was doing in the first half, scramble and find a guy and throw it to him. They didn't really let him do that. Kind of some weird play calls, but Utah had multiple chances to put the game away, and they didn't. To where Utah fans, I was cheering for y'all, but you guys had multiple chances to win. Granted, Now for the BYU side, BYU played how I thought BYU would play most of the season. It was the BYU team I remember from last year, and I mean this with all due respect to my BYU fans. I was kind of yes, I was cheering for Utah, but growing up here as a non-Utah team fan, I got crap my whole life growing up to where I don't like either team. I don't like the fans, don't like any of them. But BYU just did not look that great. I'll be honest. I'll be completely straight up with Chase here and any of the listeners. I know we have a lot of BYU listeners, but I would not be surprised. I know BYU is 9-0. I know they have a win over Kansas State and a win over SMU. And the SMU looks better every week. The Kansas State one, it looks okay now after the loss to Houston. I don't know if that's like –
It still looks better than any of Penn State's wins.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or Indiana's.
That's fair. I would not be surprised if Notre Dame winning 52-3 over FSU.
No way, bro.
Bama winning by 31?
Yeah.
32 against LSU at Death Valley.
We'll talk about that one after.
Puts them above BYU. And I'm not saying that I'm not discrediting BYU. BYU is 9-0. I think they should be top 10. But I would not be surprised just because BYU just did not look good in the game against Utah. And that's just how it is. I think a lot of the CFP has to do with power rankings based on that last week, kind of how the team looked. I don't know. It's interesting. Every week last year when they dropped rankings, it was like based off something else, it felt like, to where I don't really know what to expect where BYU will fall. Because another conversation is Tennessee. Nico is out for the season, to where Tennessee, it's kind of like FSU.
I didn't know he was out for the season. I just knew he got hurt.
It's like, what do we do? I mean, I could be wrong. Someone told me that. Let me look.
Yeah. But, Sned, I do think you got You hit most of the points that I think are good to have contrary. But I hope the playoff committee really sees. I mean, even from my Showtime CFB perspective, I really hope the committee realizes that, first of all, it's a rivalry game. It means everything to Utah and
never mind.
BYU.
Nico is not out. Nico's
He's
not
not
out.
out. Okay.
Someone lied to me. I don't know who was in
Okay.
our Showtime Faithful chat, but you lied. You lied.
Gosh, guys. Anyways, but I do feel like I hope the committee does not. I think putting Alabama above BYU is ridiculous. But I'm not the committee, so I'm at the mercy of the committee. Sadly, my entire livelihood. But I will say, I don't know. I feel like if BYU can win that game, they can win anything, because that game was something else, man. That was insane. We stood the entire crowd stood the entire game. I got to give it to Rice-Eccles Stadium, man. Holy cow. That was so loud the whole game. I was extremely impressed, especially where I was sitting was kind of the pinnacle. Everybody knows who goes to that stadium. The south end zone's kind of weak because they put in that snob area for all the rich people, and the north end zone is so loud, dude. Oh, it's so awesome. I had a great experience. Even the hecklers, it's college football, man. It's a rivalry. It's just like, man, every time it happens, like, man, I love this rivalry, man. I just love this rivalry. So that being said, I think we can get off of it, but I still think BYU is being disrespected a lot, but we got 3 more games. We'll see what happens. But let's move on to Alabama LSU. This game was surprising. I was the only one who picked Alabama last week, and I honestly wasn't that confident. I kind of was picking it to be a little bit different. I did feel like Bama was stronger. I've been fading LSU for a while, and it came to fruition. Bama dominated from the very start of that game. On my way up to Salt Lake, I was watching that game, so I watched live most of the game, but nonetheless, Alabama dominated.
Yeah, no,
Start to finish.
It was a complete dominant game. Nessmeyer sucks. I will be just straight up. I was watching that game with like 3 LSU fans, and I've never heard a fan base say put in the backup more than I did in this game.
The Nuss Bus.
Yeah, the Nuss Bus. LSU just looked awful. It's like exactly what we talked about. Bama kind of just shut them down with their defense. LSU couldn't do anything. Nussmeier had pressure put on him, and he did nothing. And then I think the big difference for me in this one was Milroe. Career high, 185 rushing yards. 185 rushing yards. He had more rushing than passing. He only had 100 passing yards, no touchdowns, but he had 4 rushing touchdowns. LSU's secondary did a great job, but they just forgot that Milroe can run the ball, apparently. Milroe just ran all over them. Anyone who watched the game knows exactly what I'm talking about. He just read everything so well. Milroe looked great that game, I'll be honest.
Yeah. I will say, looking at Alabama's schedule, while you're talking, I was like, let me pull this up. They play Mercer, then Oklahoma, and then Auburn. Chase, I think they're winning out.
They're a playoff team.
So that's my thing. We did talk about it was kind of a win and in game. I mean, and obviously you gotta, but like at this point, this means this Alabama team, now the tiebreakers could hurt them. They're going to finish 6-2. All due respect to Oklahoma and Auburn. Now, I know the Auburn game is close every year, no matter how good Bama is.
Yeah.
I will say it's a rivalry game. We've proven that rankings go out the door in a rivalry game. But that being said, Alabama's favored in all three of these games by quite a bit. Also, they play Auburn at home this year, just another added thing. So Alabama's probably going, 10-2 on the season now.
Yep.
Their 2 losses being to Vanderbilt and to Tennessee on the road. So this is where it gets interesting. This Bama team could be 10-2, and to their I think most Bama fans would prefer just leave us out of the conference championship.
Yeah,
please leave us out.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think they'd prefer to be left out just because it's maybe one less loss on their record.
Well, yeah, because they're going to be a fringe team, and if you're a fringe team in a conference championship, you don't want to go. You just no. We'll sit here right at number 10, and we'll just sit here because if we lose, we're out.
Yeah.
We're gonna fall 1 or 2 spots, and we're out. And so I think if you're a Bama fan, you're just begging. You're gonna go 3-0, and you're 6-2. You're hoping that if Georgia sits there 6-2, you're in over Georgia. It's so hard to know who's going to be in there, but the tiebreakers don't favor them too much. So, I don't know. It depends. The Tennessee, it's going to come down to them Tennessee, but their losses to Vanderbilt, who's not in contention. So it's not like they're going to be battling against several teams for the head-to-head win to get in.
Uh-huh.
So it looks like they'll probably be left out.
Well, it's crazy because we're going to have a lot of SEC teams who are probably 10-2 when it's all said and done. And it's just up to the committee who they put in at like 11 or 10 or 9, to where
It's going to be crazy. I'm excited to see who gets put in for the playoff, and there's going to be a lot of upset fans everywhere. So
yeah. And I love what Greg McElroy said this on this playoff show. And the closer we get to the end of the season, it's hilarious. It's like the 14 playoff, we were only leaving out one team, and one fan base was pissed. Now we're leaving out 3 teams.
More than that. I'm going to be leaving out like 6 or 7 when it's all
like that are within reach, that are 10-2,
yeah,
9-3.
It's like I seriously think that stretch between like 8 through 17 will all be just 2 lost teams that either barely don't make their championship or they win their conference championship, and then the losers in there too, to where it's like, okay, like who do we put in?
Yeah. Or they're teams that are 11-2 or 10-3 who went and lost in their conference championship that are sitting, you've got a BYU team that's sitting there 12-1, go 12-0, lose the conference championship. And they're sitting there at 12, 11.
Mm-hmm.
And which frankly would be horrific. I think BYU, if they went 12-1, would definitely be top 8. But I think, we'll see. We'll see what the committee does.
We'll see what happens. Everyone's got about 3 games left or 2.
Man, this season's been so awesome, dude.
Yeah, this season's been really fun as a college football fan. I mean, both me and Chase, it's easy to say, both of our teams are undefeated.
Of course we're having fun.
Favorite to win our conference.
But it just feels like there's upsets every week that don't quite happen every week on other seasons.
Yeah, it's like every week something happens,
Yeah. But we already talked about Iowa State, Kansas. I think we do need to talk about Colorado, Texas Tech. We did mention Colorado, but that was a big win. Texas Tech is no run-over team.
Especially at Texas Tech, man.
Yeah. The tortillas were flying, man. That was kind of a big storyline of the week, was the tortillas hitting Colorado's bench, and with other things as well, trash.
Yeah.
But it's hilarious. The tortilla thing's funny because I feel like they get on the field every game, but they don't flag them.
Yeah, it's just like a tradition to where they don't care. But yeah,
funny.
Colorado, they took care of business. Once again, they don't really have a run game, but Shedeur, 3 touchdowns, 291. Travis Hunter, almost 99 receiving yards and a touchdown. 3 players had a receiving touchdown that game, to where, it is what it is. Colorado did what they do. They just win with their offense, to where, is what it is.
And here's the thing, Colorado, they're impressing us every week. That was a pretty big statement win for them because they've kind of lost to the good teams on the schedule. They've kind of been like a Clemson, to a degree, a different degree, but like they've kind of only beaten the teams that they're supposed to beat. They won at UCF, which was that was great. That was kind of their first good win after barely beating Baylor. They lost obviously to Nebraska, lost to Kansas State at home. They went and Arizona beat them, but Arizona, of course, not doing too well. They beat Cincinnati. It was like, all right, that's all right. It's kind of like a UCF win. And Texas Tech, I feel like, is like, all right, there you go. Like that's the best win on your resume right there. Not the craziest win, but that's like, all right, that's a win.
Yeah.
So that's a good win. I mean, that's a solid win.
Mm-hmm.
And to win somewhat convincingly. Now they were down. I was like, oh, Colorado's done for. They were down by 10 plus in this game in the first half, I believe.
No, his third quarter was actually, it was 13-0 end of the first quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, first quarter, 13-0. And Texas Tech was kind of cooking a little bit, getting some home cooking. And Colorado rallied back. They scored 21 in the third. And, I was very impressed with Colorado. This is one of those wins that, it doesn't mean much nationally. A lot of people are like, all right, Texas Tech, good win. But, like, that's one of those for the fan base. You start to believe a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, whoa, like, this is actually a decent team that's our level or above or close that we beat. Kansas State you lost to. Nebraska you lost to. But it's like, all right, so we can win games that we're not necessarily favored in or close.
Yeah.
We all picked Texas Tech.
Sky didn't. I will give
Sky
that.
picked Colorado. Yeah.
Field Rush picked Colorado. I almost flipped to Colorado, but then I was like, I'm going to stay with Texas Tech. So,
but next week Colorado hosts Utah, and it's one of those things where it's like, all right, are they going to recover emotionally from that loss? But also, this means Utah would lose. So they lost 5 straight. This means Utah loses 6 straight.
Yeah.
Utah needs this game for a bowl. Does Utah go in there and upset Colorado? I don't know.
It's tough to say. It seems like they found their quarterback in some of their offense now. So I don't know, Utah wins out. So
a lot of things to learn from that game at BYU. But Colorado, they play Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. It's set right now. BYU and Colorado are all favorites in these games, and they're somewhat large favorites as they're not. The BYU at Arizona State is probably the best game we've got of those 6 games for Colorado and BYU. And BYU is the one who can afford to lose. If Colorado loses, it gets interesting because all of a sudden, Kansas State controls their own destiny, I believe, if Colorado loses a game.
Yeah.
So Colorado, if they drop a game, Kansas State needs to beat Iowa State, and they're in.
Yep.
Because they have a tiebreaker over Colorado, and they would have one obviously over Iowa State. Iowa State would be out of the picture.
Yeah.
Arizona State does have 2 losses as well. If Arizona State beats Kansas State, Arizona State almost controls their own destiny. Now, they don't play Iowa State, so it would be finicky, but
there's still a lot that can happen. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, we're assuming that Colorado can be consistent. Now, I'm not saying that as a slant. You guys saw last season. This season, they're starting to prove differently. But this is saying that Colorado is going to like coast by and win all 3 of these games. I think there's going to be a couple close ones. So
yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah, Colorado knows how to make a game interesting. I'll tell you that right now, to their credit and discredit.
It's very true. Makes it fun to watch. But yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything. Good reaction.
Hokies did lose.
Hokies lost. Clemson played pretty well.
Clemson played well, I guess. It's whatever.
If it was a night game, Hokies would have won. That's all I'm saying. Yeah,
so Clemson 6-1 in the ACC, tied with Miami for 6-1. Is there any way that Clemson gets in over Miami?
I don't know.
Because obviously they don't play each other.
I think it would come to points, and unless Clemson puts up like 50 a game these next few weeks, I don't really think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I wonder what the tiebreakers are here. I'm looking them up right now.
They do play at Pitt this week, then the Citadel, and then South Carolina to wrap it up. So I don't know. I think it would come down to – I think it would go overall record next, where Clemson has –
It goes win percentage versus all common opponents next. For some reason, conferences tend to avoid the overall record. Like they'll go several steps deep and avoid overall record, which is I find weird.
Well, Clemson doesn't play Georgia Tech, so that doesn't really favor them in any way because that's –
So you have to look at who they've played mutually and see
– at that point, then it would be equal, I think.
Then they would. So, okay, then the next tiebreaker, win percentage versus a common opponents based on their order of finish. Okay, well, that doesn't matter. So the only common opponents they've played,
I think
that would
Louisville. Then Miami beat them.
Okay, so what's really going to decide it? Here's what's going to decide it. Now, we can go through. We'll talk about this in the next podcast. We're going to do some math.
Well, I think
combined win percentage of conference opponents.
Well, I think this is it right here. Miami beat Louisville. Clemson lost to them.
Oh, wait. Yeah, what am I thinking? Yeah, you're right. Okay, so Miami does have –
Miami does have the edge. Miami does have the edge right now.
You're right. Sorry, I didn't think about that.
But yeah, kind of a little bit more of a quiet week this week. Actually, there was a lot of good. There's a good games. I kept scrolling.
Yeah.
Kansas.
Also,
BYU.
I will say I did forget to put in this this plug. You guys know. I mean, I'm sure many of you guys know the stat. You guys are not casuals. But Georgia, by the way, like if you didn't realize Georgia lost this week, like Georgia lost this week. Now they lost to Bama earlier, but that was to Bama. They have not lost to a team that was not named Alabama since 2020. That's 4 years.
That's
they lost
insane.
to Florida in 2020.
That's insane.
They haven't lost a game to someone. It's not even like regular season. No, a game at all to a team that was not Alabama in 4 years.
Dang.
That's a long time. That's 4 full seasons of football. That's
actually,
insane.
That's actually crazy.
That's insane.
Dang.
That's crazy. I mean, when you think about when it's in someone's life, you're thinking about like a 15-year-old who loves Georgia and he's been growing up. He's probably been watching games since he was 8 or 9. He hasn't seen his team really coherently lose to somebody else, not named Georgia, since he was 10.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Imagine that
insane.
being your life, man.
And it's actually insane.
That's crazy.
But yeah, kind of covered everything we want to with the reactions for you guys. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. But let's see, we got Texas Arkansas at Arkansas. Could be an interesting game. Arkansas's kept it close. Clemson Pitt, Utah Colorado could shape up to be interesting. Boston College SMU.
Kind of an off week a little bit.
Yeah, Missouri
except
South,
for the big one.
Missouri South Carolina. Oregon at Wisconsin. As an Oregon fan, I do kind of fear this game. It's a late
Weather
game.
isn't bad though right now.
What?
Weather isn't too bad right now.
Weather won't be too bad. Oregon's favored by 14 right now. It is a night game, which makes it a little more concerning. But I think we'll be able to go into Camp Randall and win still. We won at the Big House.
Yeah.
Then obviously Tennessee, Georgia.
That's the big one.
That'll be an interesting game to talk about as we monitor Nico's health.
That's the only ranked game. Unless Arizona State sneaks into the CFP rankings.
Yeah.
That's the only ranked game this week.
And then Arizona State, Kansas State. That's a very underrated game. So
yeah, that's like the second biggest game.
We got some upset potentials to talk about this next week.
Oh yeah, I think the upset watches off the charts this week.
Yeah, we're
Utah, Colorado, BYU, Kansas.
This next podcast, we will have another celebrity picker.
Oh, yeah,
anyone on Instagram knows this man, CFB Kings, one of my favorite, if not my favorite, college football account. I love his content. He posts cool stats, just all around, just a great account, good guy. So we're excited to have him on. We'll talk about probably some reactions from him from the CFP committee and then predictions. So stay tuned, boys.
Also, I don't know if you mentioned this, but Missouri, South Carolina, did you say that?
Yeah.
Dude, that is like South Carolina's been our upset watch team of the year, obviously. But that is like Missouri is going to meet their freaking maker finally. South Carolina is going to whoop them, and South Carolina's going to be ranked.
Wow.
I'm calling it right now, dude.
Crazy. I mean, South Carolina is already favored by 13.
Oh, also, we didn't mention that. South Carolina, Gamecocks, hey, good win over Vandy. Good win.
We've had y'all ranked for forever.
Yeah. Seriously. South Carolina should be ranked this week. 6-3, several great wins. They should be ranked. And I think they're going to be – and it's at home. Remember, South Carolina's playing all these big games at home. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Love it. There's some good games, actually. I discounted the week. My apologies. But, to the non-casual. Also, San Jose State – Boise State plays at San Jose State. San Jose State's been kind of one of the better teams in the Mountain West,
It's true.
Good game to watch. On a Saturday for once. Boise State's played on Friday like every freaking week, so.
But, it all just shapes up for season finale games for rivals, and that's when all havoc breaks loose. So,
man.
Yeah.
Also, Tulane Navy. Whoa.
Crazy. Navy fell off the map, man.
Yeah. They lost again.
They lost to Rice.
Yeah, it's crazy. They beat South Florida this week, but, man, that's tough. Poor Navy. Army's still going strong, though. Army is still going strong.
I've always been more of an Army than a Navy guy, so I'm happy.
Really? I've always been Navy. I don't know why. I just I love both, obviously.
Yeah, I've always
love my troops. I love both. But I've always kind of been more of a Navy guy. When they play, I usually cheer for Navy.
I always cheer for Army. So there we go.
Dang, rivalry. Deeply rooted. But when does Army play Notre Dame? Like when are we getting that game?
Let's look.
Oh, it's like week 13 next week.
There we go. Indiana, Ohio State, BYU, Arizona State. Yeah,
We're
week
looking
13.
at next week.
Week 13, underrated game. But that's 2 weeks ahead. We got this.
Yeah,
week
we gotta
to
calm
worry
down,
about.
calm down, calm down.
I've learned the season not to look ahead. So.
Yeah, you cannot look ahead, bro.
But yeah,
That's
boys. Hope you all enjoyed this episode. It's kind of it. It's late. Both me and Chase want to go to bed for work and school tomorrow. So
It's good.
Yeah.
Good week of football. Good week of football. Got the upsets. Got some upsets. Had some fun. Had our fun. But it was good.
Sweet.
Yeah. Can't wait for next week. New podcast coming out. CFP Kings coming out Wednesday or Thursday. Probably Thursday, as usual. But signing off, you guys. Love you guys. From Show
Time.
College Football. Love y'all.
Let's go Ducks, baby.
Go Cougs.